I think it was last night when it just started getting frigid. I don't know why. I guess it's because it's winter time. But all of a sudden it got cold. I'm so thankful though, like I said earlier, that we do have a place to go and we have heating and cooling when needed and we can be together. Always good to be together. We are continuing in our study in the book of Ephesians. And I haven't been here. I guess it's been about 3 weeks, right? I was out first Wednesday, and then we didn't meet last Wednesday, so it's been about 3 weeks, and I began chapter 6, so I'll kind of do a little brief summary of what we've been over so far. And chapter 5 concluded about the relationship between the husband and the wife, and he compared it to the relationship from Christ and his bride, which is the church. And then chapter 6, we have instructions for the children. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. And it's issued to all children who are old enough to receive instruction. It's always been this way since the beginning. It didn't just all of a sudden been created into a law when the Ten Commandments came along. It's always been children need to obey their parents because that's the right thing to do. There is a limit to this, though. What's the limit about obeying your parents?
In the Lord.
In the Lord. That means that if the parents are instructing according to the laws of God, need to do so. If parents are instructing their children to behave sinfully or live according to the world, that is something that we do not need to obey. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. Why? That it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. Now, that's not guaranteeing that you're going to live a long life because you obeyed your parents. You will live well on the earth. If you learn to obey your parents in the home, you're more than likely going to obey your authorities outside the home. Also, if children are disobedient in the home and that's allowed and permitted, when they're out in the world and they commit, say, break the law and then they have to face a consequence, it's going to be much worse for them. Why? I mean, it's not a harsher penalty, but why would it be worse for the child when he receives a law or receives the punishment according to the law? That's it. He doesn't know the pattern of action and consequence. Consequences in the home, he may get by with things he shouldn't get by with, but when it comes to the law, you know, there are those things.
Brandon?
So, yes, sir.
Under the old law, your life would be shortened very quickly.
That's correct.
If you disobeyed, you were done away with.
Deuteronomy chapter 21, if the child is stubborn and will not even obey the parents, they took them to the elders and they dealt with it and they feed it, and it was, the penalty was death. They were put to death. Absolutely. So those who disobey their parents in the gospel age face the prospect of standing before Christ in the last day with this and other sins against their record. 2 Corinthians 5 and 10, Romans 14, 10 through 12. So honor your father and mother, first commandment with promise. You will live better on the earth. There are good motives for honoring your mother and your father. First and foremost, it's because God said so. You're doing that which is right. You are committing righteousness. It's the best interest for the child and less likely to have problems with other things. Doesn't guarantee it, but
practice it now. The population should be down.
well, yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. Because of the way the world teaches things such as fornication, instead of people saying, you know, you shouldn't do that until you get married, they're now kind of compromising or desensitizing that sin and saying, well, make sure it's with somebody you love. And then they even go down further and say, well, if you're going to do it, make sure you're using protection or whatever. and so irresponsibility happens, and therefore you have homes that are made that are not according to God's design, and that trickles down. And so what we need to do is go to those people and teach them with love, according to what God has said. And yes, a lot of problems in society will improve or will diminish. The society will improve. As a matter of fact, we talked about that. I don't know if y'all remember 3 weeks ago. We said the society starts where? Where does it? Where does the progress start? It's in the home. If America will fall if the home falls. And so if we're not in the design of what God said to do, then the country's going to fall within itself too.
There's 2 different groups of young people now that's facing murder charges for throwing stuff off of bridges. Now, undoubtedly they had no learning from home about the right or wrong of thinking.
Like they were just going to a bridge and throwing stuff off.
Threw a sandbag off.
Killed somebody.
On I-75. 2 different groups of them that did this. They're all charged with murder.
Yeah.
If they'd had some training at home, they might have avoided a lot of that.
They a couple of whippings, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh man, I hate that. I hate
Rock,
to hear
yeah,
that.
one of them was a rock.
Mm.
Disregard for human life as a whole in that situation is astonishing to me.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do mean stuff and you start hurting people because it's something to do. I mean, there's none of it's right, but when you start hurting other people,
Right.
that's the difference. In my opinion, it's different.
Absolutely. They don't think twice about what could happen, and therefore the worst happens, or it could happen. Even disregard to human life. Throwing stuff at moving vehicles is not. It's not only. I can't even imagine people doing that, but
No, it's
it's nonsense for sure. Okay, so we have children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. And if we do those things in the home, with the family that is designed by God, society will improve. The home life will improve. The children's their life will improve as they grow up. It's not a guarantee, but it's definitely in the right direction for sure. Now, verse 4.
Brandon,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I was gonna say something about, with the 6:1 and, along with that, looking at Colossians,
Okay.
3 verse 20, says, children, be obedient to your parents in all things, for this is well pleasing with the Lord. And a lot of times when I talk to my children, we talk about being well pleasing to the Lord, and what are we doing to be pleasing? And if they understand that they're to live for the Lord and they're to be pleasing to Him, along with, it helps, I think, that our obedience
Right.
helps them understand that that is well pleasing to God.
Right. If we teach our children that we want to please our Heavenly Father, and how do we do that?
life we live.
We do what He says. That's how we're pleasing to God. We do what He says, and then you start right there teaching your children, hey, you are pleasing God by obeying your parents. Sometimes that's the motive that we need. Sometimes as parents, we tell our children to do something that they don't want to do. Take a break from the iPad and go put your clothes away. And what do you get? Eye rolling and all that. But if you're constantly reminded of that, hey, if you're obeying your parents, you're pleasing God, and I know that helps Olivia out. Just and just in our experience, in your reminder that hey, this is what we want to do. It'll help the children, and as they get older, they understand that even further. Okay, I don't have teenagers yet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. But this. I'm scared to death, just to be honest.
It's a difficult
I
time.
know a lot of us who have small children or who have yet to have teenagers.
And we remember
We're a little
when we were
nervous.
teenagers.
Yeah, we need to go to those who've been there before and ask for advice or whatever. But you wonder, because teenagers at that age is the most vulnerable, in my opinion.
Maybe when them and them get to be teenagers, maybe the world will be a whole lot better than it is now.
Oh, brother, I wish wish I could say that's a guarantee.
Who's gonna be in charge and
Yeah, but I hate to say that I wish I wish I could say that would be true, but unfortunately, I think by that generation when Liam becomes say my age, I think this world is just going to be upside down. Now, the generation before me probably thought that about me when they said when they gets my age, the world's going to be crazy. Well, it is crazy now, but then it's going to get even worse when the next generation comes. But that's why I'm glad you brought this up, Raylan, because that's why we as parents have to harp on this while they're young enough to know it. They're never too young to learn the Bible. You start at a young age. You start teaching them just the simple basic stuff. You start teaching them the books of the Bible, and even in the nursery classes, they're patting on the Bible. They understand what the Bible is. There's always a level to where you can start, okay? And then if you start them young, when they become teenagers, more likely, I can't guarantee it. Again, I can't say that because you never know what they're going to run into outside the home. They will be obedient. They will be because they want to please God. But then again, you still have the world out there. We have to, as parents, and again, I don't feel like I'm qualified to teach on raising teenagers because I'm not raising teenagers. I've taught teenagers, high school age, and I know how they could be. You gotta be on top of things of what they're doing in this world right now, with the technology, who they're texting, who their friends are, who are their friends' parents. It is okay to know that stuff, and it is absolutely okay to take your child's phone and make sure they're doing okay with the texting. It is absolutely okay. As a matter of fact, I recommend it. And some will defend that and say, well, I don't want to invade their privacy. You're in my roof, there's no privacy. Okay? Absolutely not. So, I don't even want to think about boyfriends yet. But she's not going anywhere private with a boy. It's just not going to happen. Y'all laugh at me because y'all like, yeah, right. But I know. But I'm just saying, like, there's going to be a rule in my house. I mean,
What age you talking
I don't
about?
know, man.
20 or 10?
Anyway. Yeah. Yeah. When can she date? Never.
I can tell you from experience, raising little girls is harder than raising little boys.
I know it. But then again, motivate them to love the Lord. Start at a young age, and it'll be. I'm guessing it'll be easier as in their teen years, supposedly, because when you start putting rules on them when they're in their teens, they have that rebellious gene. They want that. They want to start separating, because they're grown and they know everything. And I didn't even want to go there today, but anyway, y'all got me all worked up. So,
Brandon, one thing that we as parents need to realize is you can't just make them do anything.
right.
You've got to lead them into doing things.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I wanted to go today because beginning of verse 4, it goes to a different relationship to the fathers. For instance, verse 4, and ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, okay, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Anybody have American Standard? Discipline, instruction, also chastening, which is the same thing. Instead of nurture, you have chastening or discipline. Okay, bring them up with in discipline and chastening and admonition of the Lord. There's no reason for anybody, and this kind of goes with what you just said, Raymond, about making somebody do something. Okay, we can't do that. Absolutely not. So that goes back to what Ray Lynn brought up a while ago, is making sure they know the motive, why they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Please God, obey your parents. And then there wouldn't be a need to have a heavy hand when it comes to discipline. Does that make sense? Well, even when it comes to that, and you feel like you need a heavy hand, even that's not going to work. Okay, that's going to be even worse. It's going to send them even further. Let's go to some verses here. Actually, no, I have an illustration here that I wanted to bring up. Those who train animals, dogs maybe. If you're abusive to a dog, what's going to happen to a dog? That's exactly right. It's going to become vicious. It's going to become dangerous, rebellious. If you're beating a dog, all right. You could train a dog to kill, okay. And the same thing if children are abused, they can become vicious. They can become dangerous. Their minds are not where they should be, and so there's no need for a heavy hand. But discipline, it's important. It's essential. Preventive discipline or corrective discipline, but never harsh punishment or unjust punishment. True or false? Do kids know that you're being fair when it comes to discipline?
I don't think they understand.
Well, what if I was being unfair to my kids? Do you think they would know what that is? Maybe not able.
I think it's unfair, they think it's unfair when they don't give what they want.
You're right. You're exactly right. Olivia, that's Olivia's new word now. When I make her do something, she'll say that's unfair. I said, what's unfair about it? Well, I don't want to do it. I said, that doesn't make it unfair. She don't understand that. True, but if I were to punish her for no reason, you think she would notice that?
Yeah.
Okay. That would be unjust punishment. That's going to do a lot of harm. But there are wise methods. So let's go to the book of Proverbs for a second. Let's hold our place in Ephesians 6. Let's begin Proverbs 13. Someone read verse 24. Proverbs 13 and 24.
He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteth him betimes.
The world the religious world maybe, I don't know, but I've learned it different. You spare the rod, you do what to the child? Spoil the child. But this verse here has it even further than that. It says what? Hates the child. If we don't discipline our children, they're going to think that they can get away with things. Some people I'm not speaking for anybody at all, but some do not discipline their children because they don't want to be too harsh to them, or I really don't understand or know the reason why they don't. Maybe they think it's being hateful, but the Bible teaches opposite. If you don't discipline your child, you hate that child. And how does that make sense? I mean, the mind in our minds or the world's mind, they're thinking, I don't hate the child. I'm not spanking the child. I had a parent one day come to my office and say, my husband and I, we never had to spank our child. My first thought was like, there's your problem. There's your problem. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so. Like, I'll just use Abel for an illustration since he's young and he won't remember this. Sometimes at night he'll cry because he doesn't like bedtime. Well, mom and dad are very tired. What do we do? What do you think we do? I'm getting him and putting him in bed so he goes to sleep so I can get some sleep. Does that help my problem? No. That kid's going to, if I continue doing that, he's going to be 9 years old still getting in my bed. So I've got to teach him. And we have to deal with the hardship, and work with him until he's trained to not be all fussy to get his way at night. Okay? But yeah, you're exactly right. It's just easier sometimes, just to give him what he wants.
If you don't do it now, it's going to be terribly hard
Yeah.
It's hard to train that dog to do the things you want it to do. If you do it when it's young, you'll always remember it and it'll continue doing it.
And when it comes to learning, if we learn about, to do something the incorrect way, before we teach them the correct way, we have to do what? We have to unlearn them the incorrect way and then teach them the correct way. So you're taking an extra step. Same with conversion. I grew up in a denomination. I learned a certain way, and it took me, it's harder, it's more difficult to talk to somebody who's learned a certain way their whole life, and then when you show them the Bible, they have to unlearn that and then learn the correct way. It's really the same. It's the same process when it comes to teaching anything, but especially your kids. Those who refuse to take away the pacifier until the child is 5 or 6 years old. You know, take a couple of. I mean, I can't speak for every child. All children are different, but I'm just saying, in a general sense, deal with 2-3 days of crying because he doesn't have his pacifier to wean him off of it. Deal with that rather than having to take it away from him when he's 5 or 6 years old. I don't want anybody to think that I'm some expert on parenting. I'm not. I'm just trying to illustrate here about raising children and not using wrath.
Communications is really important.
Sir?
Communication is one of the most important things that you talk with your children, you explain things. I guess one of my pet peeves is, I probably use this. Why am I got to do this? Because I said to.
Because I said so.
Instead of telling them why you don't want them to do it and explaining where they can understand it, you know.
Right. That's exactly right. It's taking the time to teach. Sometimes you teach them over and over again, and then finally you say, because I said so.
Last resort.
That's true. Sometimes some children need to learn it more and more and need to hear the same thing longer. It takes some children longer to learn something, I guess, is what I should say.
That realm of teaching goes beyond childhood and even into the adulthood.
Sure.
Enabling certain ones to continue in their bad habits. Just continue until you do the tough love and break it off.
Yeah.
Stop it at some point.
It's
Children
that's an excellent point. That goes back to doing well and living long on the earth. You don't learn these things as a child, and then as an older child, and then when you're an adult, now you're defending it, and not only that, you're now starting to make comments like, "Well, I'm an adult, I can do what I want," and so there's another barrier to break, and so they don't learn to be humble. Okay, that's why we need to learn that humility in the home as a child.
Parents also need to be an example, not just telling them rules and regulations.
Oh yeah. If I stayed at home and told my child to go to church, you know, if I was at home and I'm doing these bad habits and then I get on to my children for doing the exact same thing, that goes in the realm of fairness. Remember, children, do they or do they not want to mimic their parents to the T, to the absolute T? So, very good point, excellent point. So, when you're a member at a congregation and you go to the congregation and you're, I'm saying this generally speaking, I'm not pointing anybody out, but if say that you come to the building, you shake hands with everybody, you hug their neck, and you talk to them, and you're putting on a front that, hey, I really care, and then on the ride home, you start murmuring and then talking behind somebody's back to your spouse. Your children hear that. They learn that. You go home and you talk about how bad the sermon was, or man, I wish he could speak better, or whatever. Your children's going to learn that, and they're going to start thinking about that. That goes with the realm of being an example. That's an excellent point. Y'all are bringing up some very good things. I appreciate it so much. Let's go to go to another one. Let's go to Proverbs 19 and verse 18. This goes along with what we were teaching.
Chasten thy son while there is hope, and let not thy soul spare for his crime.
When do you chasten your son? While there's hope. Okay? Goes along with what we're talking about. You teach your children now. And don't wait until they're teenagers before you try to cram it all in their head about the Bible or about the church or about God or His Son or salvation. You wait until then, less likely they're just going to push it right back out. You teach them now when they're young and they're little. Now, it's never too late. It's never too late to teach anybody. I don't want to say that, but I'm just saying it's easier if you do this while they're small children. Okay?
At that time too, there's a level of respect that's built up at an early age. Respect for the parents. If the parents doing that, then that respect alone maybe keep that child from disobedience because they respect their parents so much.
Right.
That alone keep them from doing it.
That's actually a very good point. The reverence.
Then you go further, if they don't respect their parents, they're probably not going to respect the law.
Right. Exactly. The reverence to their parents and for what they've done, and what they know, and what they teach, and how they're an example, it's just society's not like that today. As a matter of fact, I remember growing up and watching Nickelodeon, and that's a kid's show, whatever, or a kid's TV station. And there's always these shows where the kids were the intelligent ones, and the parents were the knuckleheads. Okay, that was the whole theme. It was like they were trying to shove that down our throats. The parents were the knuckleheads, didn't know anything about anything, but the kids knew everything. I wish I could think of an example off the top of my head, but it always seemed like the kids enjoyed the show it was more funny to see the adults act silly, and the kids act like they're helping the adults or whatnot. So that when you said something about respecting parents, there's a teaching now. You watch your shows, you watch your children's shows with them, sit down with them. I know it's probably like you want to pull your hair out, but you watch those cartoons, and you watch and see how the adults always get into trouble, and it's always the kids bailing them out because the adults are the knuckleheads and the children know everything. So check it out, watch it, and see what you think about that. Let's go to chapter 22, Proverbs 22, verse 6. Train up a child how? In the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. You train up a child the way you should train him up, but you don't change him. Children they all have their personalities, right? Each child does. Those of us who have multiple children, I'll say that with a laugh now, but those of us who have multiple children, we are completely, utterly amazed how each one is different. They're raised in the same home, but they have their own personality. They have their own way of doing things. Don't fight that. Don't try to make a child be like you. You train him up the way he should go. Teach him about the Lord. Teach him about salvation. You train him up the way he should go, but don't try to force him to be like somebody else, especially his own sibling. You're going to talk about damage there that you're doing. You love so-and-so more than so-and-so or whatnot. But train him up the way he should go. Don't try to change him against him. So that would be if we did that. If I tried to say I want Abel to be more like Liam, and I try to train him up like that, and he's fighting it, he's resisting it, he's his own human being. He's going to develop some kind of mental problem, probably, or at least animosity, sibling rivalry, things that could lead to hatefulness, and then ultimately a sinful life, rebellious life. So, that's right. Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. So,
Just what happened with Cain and Abel, he killed his own brother.
sure, absolutely, jealousy there. So that, yep, that's a great example of that. That's actually a good place to stop, because the next section goes to a different relationship between the servants and the masters, and there's a really good thing I want to talk about when it comes to that lesson. So looking forward to that, Lord willing, next Wednesday.